Hello everybody, a quick check-in from Albania. Yes, I'm still here. It feels like I've been here for a year, but it's coming up on about 2 weeks. I'm on an off week in between workshops. So we finished up a workshop last week and we have another one that starts tomorrow. So for the past week, I've been sitting here in this small town on the southern coast. I've been doing a lot of writing in my journal. In fact, I just filled this one this morning and I'm moving on to a second one. The first workshop was great. We're in the middle of a heat wave here in Albania, which was the same thing that happened in 2019 when I came. We're pre-season prior to really when the heat is supposed to hit, but we've had like mid-90s, high humidity, so it's been a little on the hot side. Last week we started in Tirana, we went to Korça, we went to Vaspaloja, we went to Permet, we went to Gjirokastër, we went to Saranda. So there was a lot of movement, a lot of activity. The class went really well. My primary responsibility was to get people making magazines in real time. Initially, I think a lot of people found that idea very daunting, because the software was new, the idea of editing and sequencing in real time was new, the idea of typography was new, design was new. So initially it's something that you think, wow, this is going to be a hurdle to get over. But the second they started working on their covers and a single inside spread, their narratives began to unfold in front of them. So that's always a fun thing to watch, and it's fun for me to help people understand how interesting and strategic and fun it is to do this in real time. That's why I'm here in Albania. So we have another workshop starting tomorrow, but I wanted to bring a couple of things up. I just spent way too long looking for an image on my iPhone that I had neglected to put into a subfolder on my phone. So in essence, my digital asset management on my phone is horrible, like most of the rest of my life. And so I took forever to find this one specific picture that I needed for a blurb assignment that came in yesterday, which reminded me that I have not told you yet, but I am doing a conversation, a webinar with Peter Crow. And Peter is one of the few people in the world that you can literally look at and say, damn, son, because he wrote the digital asset management book, otherwise known as the DAM book for photographers. And so he and I are talking about this very thing: how to archive, where to archive, strategies, softwares, the whole deal. So that's coming up on June 30th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time. June 30th, I'll be talking with him. God knows I need it, because my digital asset management, while better than some, is not where it needs to be. And my guess is a lot of you are probably not where you need to be. And if any of you tell me you have a foolproof system in place, I don't believe you, because I have yet to see a foolproof system in the modern era. So we're all in this hybrid world. Anyway, that's coming up. So this week, the past week, being in Albania has been very interesting. It's the first trip since COVID. I have left the country during COVID, but not on something this extended. COVID here is very much more under control than it is in the United States, but we're still taking precautions. We have to, because as Americans, you have to pass a test to get back into the country, and so we're all being safe. It's not a big deal wearing a mask in the transit, any of that stuff. We're outside most of the time, no big deal. For me as a photographer, it's been a little weird being on this trip, because when I come on trips like this to teach, clearly enough, my primary responsibility is teaching and watching the students in the field, and then also helping them with their books, which I already talked about. But as a photographer, it's almost impossible to have that old feeling creep back in of, oh my God, this is an opportunity, I need to make a picture or two. So my goal is like one photograph a day, where I make something that adds to the narrative that I started in 2019. I'm gonna show you a few images I've made this year in a minute. I'm gonna give you a little background of the backstory of being in Albania in the first place. Just a quick snippet of what I did over the past couple of weeks. But it's weird. I also mentioned in a YouTube comment that I've sort of fallen for this camera that I did not want to fall for, which I do not own yet, and probably will not own until at least next year if I end up buying it at all. And the important point is not the camera. The important point is that something rekindled a little bit in me being on this trip. I don't want to be a photographer again. I'm never going to work as a photographer again. But the idea of making the kind of pictures that I used to make came back to me for whatever reason. Just the idea of, hey, and it was more of a question than anything else. Are you still capable of making that kind of work? Because what I'm doing in Albania in 2019 and 2022 is I'm doing double and multiple exposures. which frankly for me is a bit of a gimmick, right? I like the way they look, don't get me wrong, but it's also a lot easier to make those photographs than it is to make good, straight photographs. So I find myself in this weird situation of saying, am I still good enough to make those straight photographs, or do I need to rely on something like doubles or multiples or whatever? So not to detract from people who do doubles and multiples all the time. I get it. They look beautiful, they're interesting, they make your head work in a different way. They're far more complex than you imagine, especially if you're trying to make good multiples or doubles. But again, just the little seed of doubt has been planted, doubt in a good way. And the last thing I'm going to say before we get to this little film is a couple of people have mentioned, the last film I posted, which was about Nicaragua, was called Not Good Enough. A lot of folks have said, hey, you know, like you're being too hard on yourself, or does it matter if only the photo world people or people with training, is their opinion the only one that matters? Frankly, I find that a little bit of a cop-out, because no, they're not the only people that matter. The people in your photographs, those people's opinion matters, certainly. You know, your friends and family, if they like it, sure, that can matter to you. But there is something specific about getting feedback from someone who's spent their life in photography and knows the history and the context and where your work fits in. Those people tend to cut to the chase. Those people tend to say, not good enough, or yes, you're on the right path, keep going, or you've got it, you're done. Now package it and put it out into the world. So judging myself, I don't view it as judging myself harshly, because I spent my career putting my work in front of those other people who I trusted to tell me, you're on the right path, you're done, or you're not there yet, or this just isn't simply good enough to add to the conversation. So don't cop out on that. You know, go to a portfolio review, put your work in front of people who stare at photography all day, every day, and it will give you a perspective that more than likely you are not getting from the online space. So there we are. I would show you what's happening in the room. There's a partially eaten thing of cookies. I mentioned this before. My diet, my health, out the window when I travel for whatever reason. Although I have been out active every day, hiking mile after mile after mile, but still, beautiful hotel, little Airbnb here on the southern coast. We have rain coming in this afternoon. The rest of the crew is out exploring, and I am sitting in here wrapping up some blurb things and writing some blurb things and delivering some blurb things and doing blurb things, which is what I do and why all of this works. So I hope everyone is well, and I will be back after I get back to the United States, and I will do a real film from this trip and you know, recap it up like we do. And I promise there will be no drone footage, there will be no slow motion, there will be nothing. It'll just be me rambling once again.
questioni, le arti moderno sarà